Italy? Whiskey? Ah, Italy, you could never look at my secret. Oh no, suddenly. I don't leave it. Let's begin. Indeed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat, where we try to, start interesting conversations with interesting people that are either in or around this whole men's issues conversation that we're trying to expand. So on today's show, I have with me John Cooper, who is, I got this thing off of your, it's off of your Amazon page. It says, John is a world-traveling communications and relationships coach that uses his background in art direction to change the way we connect with each other. His recent mission involved infiltrating the men's seduction community and subverting it into a platform for masculine and spiritual development, turning an industry of men going on the hunt for women into a platform for self-healing and self-expression. So, welcome to the show, John, first of all.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me on, mate. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is great. It's great to have you. So you wrote a book called Game Over, from pickup art. Well, actually, there's a couple, but from pickup artist to social artist. And I guess you met Allison at Messages for Men in, I want to say, 2019.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah, time's a bit of a blur in the last few years, isn't it? But
a little bit.
Yeah, sounds right.
So I guess we should probably get a little bit of backstory. Tell us how did you find yourself at Messages for Men, for one?
Well, I mean, I've had a slightly different route, and that will be explained through the book I wrote and the story there as well, the backstory there. I've had a keen interest in the manosphere in general. We're going to talk a little bit about the seduction industry, or it's called the pickup artist industry. That was actually one of the first parts of the, if you want to call it the manosphere, in the sort of the 90s. So that sort of led the way for a lot of other things to follow. So in many ways, that was my introduction to men's issues, if you like. But also, I've also been taking a strong opinion and position on, uplifting men as well, and giving men more of a platform, and acknowledging men's psychosocial deficits in society, mental health issues, stuff like that. And also the kind of the gynocentric culture that we're in, trying to push back a little bit on that and trying to give more of a voice to men. So all those things combined led me to Messages for Men. And I actually told the story kind of, that I'm going to say to you, that was in my book, how I actually was, a kid that was bullied at school. I didn't really know my place in the world. I really struggled to even develop friendships at that age, and develop relationships, interact with women at that age. And I didn't really have a role model, as most guys do when they're sort of young. They're missing that male role model. And then what happened was, as I started to get through puberty, and I was no longer the ugly spotty duckling anymore, I sort of got through puberty, and then I started to, become a man, if you like. And then I noticed that girls were starting to find me attractive, but I didn't really know how to act upon it. And I eventually started to learn how to be better with women, romantically, sensually, sexually. And this is what led me down the path to this pickup artist community.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about this in a little while. But the short story is that this community sucked me in because it's like culture had created a vacuum, and this community was offering me all the things that I didn't have, such as community, like a brotherhood. It was teaching me social skills, communication skills. It was going to teach me obviously how to get laid and be with women, the thing that I was struggling with at the time. It was just going to teach me how to be more confident. There was loads of other sort of secondary benefits that I saw from this, and that's actually how a lot of guys get into this community. So that's the story. And then I tell the story at Messages for Men. I tell the story about how I got into that community for about a year or a couple of years, and I actually realized it was like a honey trap. It was like a trap for men, and it kind of got men stuck in that. And then actually sort of, even though they were having more success talking to more women and developing more social skills, although it seemed, it was actually creating more residual negative social impact on these guys. You know, they would actually find themselves becoming more socially perverted, seeing women as they used to call them targets and, you know, objects, and, you know, like they have to disarm their bitch shields, and they're using a lot of military language in order to sort of talk to women. And it became a little bit of like a nerdy, kind of like a nerdy boys club, if you know what I mean. And it had a very dark side to it. So anyway, that was the kind of the story that I told Messages for Men. And I was just sort of offering a solution to that, which is to, instead of trying to control your interactions with women and strategize and trying to get that thing like you're a kind of, you know, like a needy, you know, like a beggar on the streets needing something, is to actually come back into the body again, come out of the head, drop back into the body, into the heart. And that's why I call it this philosophy, social artistry, and learn how to just express unconditionally to women without any need for any objective whatsoever. And actually, when you do that, you'll find that people will come into your life. You will be more attractive. You'll also be more natural. You can bring out your authentic self, but you can't really do that in the whole pickup industry. And so that was the story. And I'm sure we'll go into it a little bit more depth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks for summarizing essentially your journey, right? This is sort of like, you know, you started off, you were socially awkward. Would that be fair? And when you were young and you experienced bullying and you weren't really great at making friends, but then like even before that, you said you didn't have like a male figure to sort of model your self against, or your, you know, life philosophy against. Did you know your father? Or was he just not present, or what?
Yeah, no, my father was, you know, he's a great man, but he was very busy with work trying to support the family. And in his spare time, he used to do a lot of sport to kind of, you know, release some steam, shall we say? So, you know, he was busy supporting the family. So I have, you know, it's nothing against my dad whatsoever. Very supportive man, but I still had to father myself in many ways, in many aspects. You know, no one really taught me, and I'm sure for many guys watching this as well, you know, who teaches us how to you know, talk to girls when we're young? Like, there's many things we're not taught. I mean, we're not taught about finances. You know, we're not talking about how to, you know, communicate, really, are we? We're just told how to do maths and English and a bit of geography and a bit of science. So, you know, there's a huge vacuum when it comes to our personal development. And that vacuum was filled by this industry. And so I have a lot of compassion and empathy for guys that fall into it, because it's a natural way to develop those skills that they never had. And certainly for me, and I didn't really have that.
Yeah. And so like you called this, it's kind of a trap. The PUA thing. Now, I think the PUA, let's say, phenomenon seems to have like taken a back seat. I've noticed recently. Maybe it hasn't changed much where you are, but I've noticed that the manosphere has they sort of moved away from the pickup artistry into what they're calling like a more general red pill thing, but it's not that different. I mean, it's been rebranded and you know, there's been a little bit of evolution, I guess, but it doesn't appear to be that different. So why don't you tell me what the trap is a little bit more? You know, what is the I guess the potential risk that a young man, again, trying to like navigate his adult life, he wants a good woman, he wants to, you know, start a family. I think most men do, and that for them, this is just a tool to sort of, you know, get there. This PUA stuff. So, what's the trap? What's the danger?
The danger is it sucks people in because, as I said, we're not really taught how to become men in society. We don't have that strong role model. The culture we're in is almost damning masculinity. It sort of knocks down the idea of strong male leadership a lot, you know, because it's constantly trying to equalize the sexes. So there's already that kind of, men are already carrying the burden of, you know, men long dead or distant for for things that, you know, we're not responsible for already. So men are sort of carrying that. So they're not really finding their way in the world, and they're not being able to express maybe their masculinity as they would as well. So they're sort of, they've almost been sort of castrated a little bit in society, I would say. So they've already got that to deal with. They probably go through a similar, I think a lot of guys go through a similar thing to me, in that, you know, they might have been, you know, separated a lot from women. They probably weren't that good with women, you know, going through school. They might have been one of the lucky ones, who knows, but generally men struggle to become men, you know, like adolescents struggle to become adult men. And then they have this community there, which is saying, look, you know, join this. It's a strong male group where you can learn from, you know, how to be more masculine. You can learn how to be better with women. At the same time, you're developing your social skills and your confidence. It's filling that vacuum for these guys. So of course, that's, you know, guys get into that. They're obviously sexually charged. They want, you know, they want women. They're thinking, wow, I've always been a nerd, but this thing is telling me how to have the blueprint to getting into a girl's knickers. I'm going to do it. You know, that's how a lot of guys get suckered into it. I actually went out with a girl and she broke my heart. It was my first love. And it was almost as if that whole community was, if I can't have the love of my life, I can have any girl, anytime, any place. It was like a substitute. It was a compensation for my broken heart. So I got into it very broken, in a broken-hearted way. But I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to shag as many girls as I can, feel like awesome, be the player, you learn how to be the ultimate player. And so by doing that, I got into it. And yeah, I was approaching hundreds of girls. I mean, to the point where me and my friend would push each other with harder and harder challenges. He would tell me to, you know, I would say to him, see that taxi with girls that just jumped into that taxi? I want you to jump into that taxi with them and drive off with them. So we would do that. Then he would set me a challenge. See that girl holding her boyfriend's hand in that restaurant? I want you to go into that restaurant and get her number in front of the boyfriend. And, you know, it was just like crazy sort of, we became like PUA Robotrons, where we were just approaching thousands of girls, you know. And yeah, we were occasionally having sex, but I was actually finding as though I was distancing myself from women. I was finding myself less attractive than I was even before. You know, it was almost as if they could feel that there was that strategy, that control element to my behavior. And they could feel that on some level. Women can feel that when you're trying to acquire them, you know. And so a lot of guys, they get into this and they think that this is the promised land. This is the place where all their answers are all their problems are going to be solved, as long as they spend enough time learning all this stuff. And then of course you learn another book, another pickup book, another boot camp, another workshop. That's not working. I'll spend thousands on Mr. Number One in the world, you know, in LA. I'll do that. And you see these guys, they bounce around from coach to coach, from pickup book to seduction workshop, and it's like a wasp trapped inside a lampshade, just bouncing around, you know. And they don't realize that this community is not there to ultimately give you what you want. It's there to keep you ensnared, trapped in this community, so that you keep funding this community. It's there to keep an audience. It's there to keep, you know, keep the whole machine going, you know. So what they do is they elicit a pain within guys. So they say, do you know what, guys, you're empty, you know, like you're not really a man yet, but if you work with me, you can get pussy pounding action in one weekend. And so everyone goes, well, that's it, that's what I'm missing. So they come from that place of emptiness, that brokenheartedness that I went through, you know, and they're saying this can be resolved if you just do the coaching with me. So they work with that coach. They might even get laid, they might even have sex, and then of course that emptiness comes back again, and then they go, then they seek the next thing, and then the next thing, and it's just like a filling of a hole. They're constantly trying to fill their hole, and that's what the whole industry builds itself on, that thing of trying to elicit that emptiness within guys and tell them they're inadequate, and then offer the solution. You know, it's that kind of problem reaction solution. And yeah, I'm not saying there's no benefits to the industry. You can learn certain things, but ultimately, if you spend too long in there, then you see these guys, they really lose themselves. They lose their identity. They find if they haven't had sex or even talked to a girl, you know, that week, then it really chips away at their self-esteem and their self-worth. They don't know who they are. And before you know it, they've become like a beggar, like a social beggar, looking for coins, you know, with their coffee cup. But instead of money, they're looking for validation and acceptance. And the trick is to, as we'll go into, what the next stage is to actually leave that industry, to get out of it and actually integrate some of the things you've learned, but bring it back into into your natural life again, and let go of this thing about looking for women as this kind of objective every time you go out and trying to control everything to an outcome. It's almost paradoxical, because guys think, I have to, if I want women, I have to go out there and I have to take that straight line approach and I have to get her. But actually, mastery is actually when you actually let go of women, still lead, still take action, but at the same time, you're okay with whatever happens. You're totally fluid in that way. So yeah, I mean, that's what I think is the trap with the industry. And I see so many guys, they come to me because they're just, it's devastated them. It really has.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that I resonate with a lot of that stuff. I didn't get involved in the PUA thing, but I did have a period, and it's like a cycle or a pattern that I've seen, not just in myself, not just in what you said, but I think in men in general, is, they come into the world like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about love, about relationships, and they struggle or stumble to varying degrees because maybe they do have a positive male model, like a father or something, that shows them this is how to be a man, this is what is appropriate, and then they model that, or they don't and they struggle, and they're socially awkward, but they usually eventually have some success with a woman, and then it doesn't work out because they overly invest and they think this is it, I'm gonna marry her and all that, and or maybe they do get married, and then that's even worse, there's like a divorce and everything, and so they are heartbroken and they truly feel vulnerable. Like, now I'm emotionally vulnerable, I'm in a position I never expected, and I'm never going to let that happen again. And so I think this is when they sort of pursue, this kind of like game PUA approach to women, yeah. And then and I think it's like a defense mechanism. They're trying to protect themselves from being hurt, but it is to me anyway, I think it is a problem that you can get stuck in there. And another thing is, it doesn't bring men satisfaction, because the problem is, in my opinion, you tell me what you think. The problem with the whole seduction PUA thing is that a man's worth is intrinsically tied into his success with women sexually. And the problem with that is that it doesn't give them a sense of their own fulfillment. So as you said, what men, I think, want is like mastery. They want to pursue a form of self-mastery. And a lot of men make the mistake of thinking that is only validated through women's approval. And the truth is, it's not necessary. In fact, it's probably better if it's simply, try to be better than the guy you were yesterday, kind of a thing. So does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Totally. I mean, this is the whole foundation of what I teach. And this is why, as you gave the little intro to me, it's like I'm subverting this industry from a place of needing to acquire and get results in order for you to feel somehow, your identity's intact. That's who you are. That's your reputation intact.
Yeah.
To a place where you're internally validated. You feel your self-worth, your self-esteem isn't dependent on your results with women. And that's why I refer to that as becoming the artist. If you think about an artist, they're not painting something. If you think about any artist like a Van Gogh or something like that, I think he sold one piece of art in his entire lifetime, right?
Yep.
You think if he was doing that every time to paint something in order to sell it, he would have still done what he did. He was doing that, and there's actually a documentary about him called Painting in the Dark, and what it meant, that was the metaphor for, he was just relentlessly expressing himself, whether or not people were buying into him or not, and liked his art or not. And it's that's the key for what I call social artistry, which is about just allow yourself just to express. And it's in the quality of that expression, the authenticity of that expression is where you set the value, not on the women's response to that, their reaction to that, whether I accept it or not. Because once you do that, you create a measuring system, you create a scoring system whereby you only feel like you've achieved something, you only feel like you're kind of a man of worth, depending on their reaction or your ability to get a number, get validation, get acceptance, have sex with her, whatever it is.
Yeah, and the other men,
it negatively reinforces the fact that you're empty.
Yes, and other men also will operate under that same measuring stick. So it's not just you're trying to get the approval or the phone number from the woman or the privilege of buying her a drink, but it's also the other men in that community that are measuring each other, right? Well, how many numbers did you pull last night? Well, how well did you do? How much sex do you get, right? And that you know, that doesn't actually I don't think anyway, contribute to what I think is really needed right now for men, which is something more cooperative or more, let's say, fraternal, right? Like I think that men need fraternity with other men. And I think this is the reason why so many men are lost and they're just pursuing women, because they don't think that men can approve of the actions of other men. They think that only women have that power. The only women have the ability to say that's a real man, or, you know, this is a good person, or this is a good thing. And that we could get into like where that comes from. I think that's like sort of gynocentrism run amok, where, you know, we're measuring the worth of things based on women's thoughts on it instead of men's, which, at least in my opinion, the reason why virtues and traits that we would think of as masculine first, not necessarily exclusively, but primarily concepts like honor and integrity and, you know, sacrifice and honesty, like these kinds of things that we admire that are masculine. I think that they've become almost meaningless now, and everything is about pragmatism and utilitarianism, and that is being done by men and women, you know. So I don't know if you follow what I'm saying, but
yeah. So are you saying then that we're not open to the same kind of level of masculine response? We're only sort of seeing it reflected back through women, would you say?
Yes.
Is that your point there?
Yes, it's essentially like you would normally, I guess, in a society that was more that valued both perspectives, the masculine and feminine, and integrated them, right? There would be feminine qualities that, you know, usually are demonstrated by women, but sometimes by men, you know, that we would find pleasurable and we would admire because it's good for society, right? We need someone to nurture children, for example.
Yeah,
and sometimes fathers do that, right? As an example. But on the other side, there are masculine qualities that are also, you know, deserving of honor and respect. For example, people who, you know, fight and die for their country, which are usually, well, 99.9% is men. You know, people who make sacrifice, people who demonstrate, you know, the importance of things like resilience and honor and other virtues, and without cowardice, right? And that's all involving risk and to some degree sacrifice. But now the masculine virtues they're, first of all, we're not allowed to call them masculine. So, you know, we have to say that they're universal. This is why when Father's Day comes around, we celebrate single motherhood. If we acknowledge Father's Day at all, by the way, you know, which was yesterday, in case you guys don't know. Happy Father's Day, belated for any fathers watching. But what fatherhood has a series of, you know, traits that go along with it that are unique from motherhood, which is why we acknowledge, or we're supposed to acknowledge, Father's Day. And it's not just fathers, right? But all of these masculine qualities now, I think that they're being viewed through a prism of feminine approval. So women will say this is a good quality, and men are not really supposed to have an opinion on it. They're just supposed to, you know, kind of they're just supposed to essentially, like, I don't want to say submit, but I can't think of another word. It's sort of like a submission to female authority over masculine, you know, virtue, which means that it becomes only the woman that decides. And the truth is, some of that has to come just from men. Like like men that you know, that have like a good grasp on masculine virtues and positive masculine traits. They should be the ones to have that authority and that ability to discern, you know, when another man is living up to that or not. So, but the problem is that women are doing it now.
Yeah, just to paraphrase, women are defining masculinity instead of men doing it for
That's
their
a
peers.
pretty good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. And the promise of female approval is why men go along with that, because men want women to like them. So
they want sex, don't they? So
yeah.
men will follow that. That's why you had in the 80s, you had the new romantics. You had these guys dressing very feminine, and like you kind of almost like the Hugh Grant culture of these nice guys, the Prince Charming archetype, because they believed, they were taught by their girl friends, their girl peers, that was what they needed to do, that women would like that. And very soon we realized that doesn't work. Women actually don't like that. They say they want that, but they don't actually want that, And then you had a sort of a flip in the 90s where you had more of the kind of the player archetype, the kind of the stronger pseudo masculine, the kind of the stereotyped Jersey Shore type masculine, which is almost like a caricature, because I think that was the, everything has an equal and opposite. That was almost like the flip into that kind of caricatured, over the top bravado masculine. And I think, that's equally bad, I would say. But you're right. The masculinity should be defined by men, and it's not at the moment. And even if you were to ask people what are the virtues of masculinity, I don't think people would there'd be a lot of haziness around that. Maybe we can ask some of the guys on the call. The interaction we have in a little while. But for me, what it's about masculinity is about leadership. It's about boundaries. It's about setting boundaries, drawing a line with people. The ability to say no is a boundary. That's a masculine quality for me. It's
absolutely.
To create change. It's the ability to go to the edge.
That's right. Masculinity lives on the perimeter.
Yeah. Women. The feminine takes up more of the central position. You can see this expressing itself in demographics and behavior and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But men will often go to the extreme. So that's why they reach the top of society in certain positions, but they're also at the very bottom as well. So that's because men go to the extreme. They have the highest rates of suicide, because they're able to, even though women statistically attempt more suicide, men are actually commit suicide because they actually are able to create that lethal force more than women.
Well, they also commit to the idea. So by the time a man is ready to take his own life, he's essentially, first of all, usually this is because men see themselves as a burden on society, so they want to remove themselves. So they believe that they're doing us a favor by taking themselves out of the equation, because now they're not a burden on society, and this is something that men really, really don't want. They despise the idea that they could be a burden. They at least want to be able to take care of themselves, so they remove themselves. And this is why when they decide they're going to do it, they do it. When women do it, I think it's a cry for help most of the time. And I think that's the reason, why they make attempts, but they leave a little bit of room to be rescued. And, that's why they might just take pills or do something like that. But men will pull the trigger. And because they're just like, I think it's just that it comes from two different places in a way. One wants to be rescued. That's why there's room left, and the other one just says, no one's going to rescue me. I know this. This is not like, I just don't want to be a burden on people, and I'm out. So yeah, that's good points. Yeah. I wanted to ask this is going to be a bit of a tricky question, because I've been thinking a lot about the masculine itself. Mm-hmm. So in the manosphere circles, there are a lot of different opinions on whether or not the discussion around what masculinity is important. I think it is. I think that we've lost touch with it a long time ago, and I think a lot of men are grasping at it, and of course, because we've been so distanced from it, I think that people do grasp at, as you said, caricatures, or these kind of like images of masculinity, but they're not really masculinity, but then there are some that say a man, you should never allow people to define what it means to be a man, because it will be used against men to control them. And I have heard that, because women do that a lot, right? A real man does this. That's what women will usually say. And then other men will follow suit, and they will use it to essentially police male behavior by saying, oh, you're not being a real man because X, Y, Z. So I understand where that sentiment of don't allow anyone to define what a man is. But what the thing that I find this is really interesting about that discussion is, right now in our internet culture, I guess, but maybe more broadly in other places, there is this big debate about what a woman is. And I don't know if you've been following that, right? But
Yeah,
but like with the trans activist lobby, essentially, you know, trying to get children to transition or what have you, but like the sort of like, let's say the dissident argument against it is that it all seems to be focused on women, right? It's all like, well, you can't have, you know, trans women and women in sports. You know, what is a woman? Like there was that documentary recently where, you know, we had to ask the question what a woman is. And of course, their answer to that question at the end is adult human female. And this is like a thing that I've seen repeated over and over. It's like Posey Parker. I don't know if you know who she is,
her,
but yeah. So she's basically been like a real like front runner fighting for this, right? And the identity of woman is this simple, descriptive, biological thing. And when I was watching all of this, I said, okay, so then what is a man? Because it's not an adult human male. But we know this because we know that to be, and this is the thing I guess I'm going to ask for your thoughts on. There is a quality that is beyond the biological. Perhaps you could call it transcendent or something, but a man is not simply considered a man by virtue of him being an adult human male, because we judge men's manhood all the time and determine whether or not they are men, not based on those qualities, but based on basically their behavior, their habits, their status, right? So what do you think about that?
I mean, I do believe that a man is an adult male human. I do believe that there has to be some kind of objective marker for this, and I think that's fine. But when we want to talk about allowing more scope to for a man to express himself as individuality, we can. You just said the word manhood. You can call it manhood. You can call it manliness, masculinity. There's subcategories that trickle down from the word man, which allows for that man to express himself in whichever way he wants to. But I don't think that means we throw the baby out with the bathwater and say there is no such thing as a man. We need to have these definitions in place to, you know, we need to have an objective reality, a shared objective reality, you know, that a negotiated framework of definitions that we can all agree on. And then from that place, then yes, we can go into more nuance on each term. But if we just throw all these terms out, then it just becomes like an amorphous blob where, you know, like they had in that documentary, they said, what is a woman? They said, whatever you want it to be, however you want to self-identify. And it's like, that's a circular argument. You can't, you know, what is that? Whatever you want it to be. It's like, you know, you need to start off with the objective reality and have these definitions in place. And then once you have man, then you can go into man, into masculinity, into manliness, into manhood, and then you can expand that and pull it out and give yourself scope for, you know, these men to express themselves in whichever way they choose, I think. But I do believe that definitions are important to me. I do believe that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that a man is first and foremost, you know, what the biology says. Yeah. But what I find fascinating about this, what is a woman thing, is that you know, I'm okay with us saying, okay, if you are that there is, like, I guess, you know, such a thing as a man on a level beyond the biological, like it's a set of behaviors, it's a set of values, it's whatever, these other things, right? But what's fascinating is that we don't do that to women. We don't say that there's a difference between a girl and a woman, other than a girl, I guess she becomes an adult. But we don't have like standards of womanhood that basically say, oh yes, you are. Oh, we maybe once we would call them a lady if they behaved a certain way. But I don't even need to go that far. I'm just thinking, like, you know, that and the problem with that too is that it harms women, because I think it does, because if women have no like female standards to live up to, I think that they end up going through life feeling like nothing they do matters. because we kind of act like there is no, you couldn't say to a woman that she's a fantastic mother, because you'd have to say that about all women, regardless of how good they are at being mothers, whether they beat their children or they abandon them or they are really nurturing and caring and everything, right? And you'll see this all the time. Like even on Father's Day, there were plenty of people that came out and said Happy Father's Day to those mothers working double duty, and they would just shower them with praise, and it was empty because they don't know how good those women are at being mothers. They don't know if they've like intentionally excluded fathers from the home so they can collect more welfare checks or whatever, right? They don't know any of that, but we don't, I guess, and I know we're going to go back to men in a second. I just wanted to point out that, there is some harm that comes from simply acknowledging like this biological reality of what a woman is and then showering it with empty praise because you don't want to upset women. Like, you know what I'm saying? And we don't do that with men, but that actually makes men stronger, which is, interesting.
Why does it make men stronger?
Well, I think that then not all men, because a lot of men might feel like they don't have a place in the world. But but what I've noticed is that men generally don't expect anyone to give them a pat on the back for being men, just for existing as men. So most men will they just focus on what needs to be done, and they find that they're not waiting for society to tell them that they have permission to essentially like be honored as men. So they just, if they have the resilience, they will just pursue their own mastery or their own greatness, right? They're just going to maximize their productivity. They're just going to take care of their family. And I think that it's because men don't expect anyone to give them credit just for being men. So they just get things done. I mean, the fact that we have essentially been demonizing masculinity for 100 years. It started off in small ways during the suffragette movement, and then the at least in the United States, we have prohibition, which women were heavily involved in. And so masculinity as a trait has been demonized for a long time, and it's only really, really ramped up recently. But men are still, despite all of that, I guess they've mostly tuned it out as white noise. They have focused on what's in front of them, and so we still have running water, electricity, internet access, like everything that men are maintaining is still going on. So that means that on some level, they're not disheartened by all of this, shaming and whatnot, because they're just like, well, I got my family, I got my community, and I'm just going to focus on that. And I think it makes them stronger. And I think this is the reason, not that I think it's good, because I don't, but I think this is the reason that women are generally less happy, why they're more likely to be seeing therapists, why they're more likely to be on medications for anxiety and depression. Because I think it's because we have largely treated them like children. And I think that's what they've become.
They've been infantilized to the point where they're unable to be autodidactic, like self-autonomous, like, in their own daily life. Is that what you're saying? But men, because we don't have that credit, we've just learned how to get on with it and just, become productive even without the back patting. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I am. That's kind of what I'm saying. But also, unfortunately, there are men who can't withstand that. And I think that's why there's like high suicide rates for men, right?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
And actually, in most cases, I think men don't commit suicide. They just self-destruct slowly. So they become alcoholics or drug addicts or other kinds of addicts. They eat a lot. They consume an unhealthy amount of porn, whatever, right? They basically disintegrate slowly. And this is the reason why, I don't think that the way we have treated men is a good thing. I'm just saying that it's made the tougher men even tougher, but the ones that couldn't endure it, I want to help them out. And I think that the primary, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to say, and that's the reason why that pickup artist community was so appealing, for that very reason, because it created a vacuum in society. And, these guys, they don't know their place in the world. They feel like they're being dismissed. They feel as though their own masculinity is toxic or whatever it is, you know, and they finally found a brotherhood, a community of guys all on a personal development tip that all wanted to learn and grow together. And then you can learn the social skills, the confidence, even the stuff like body language, developing themselves with personal fitness, everything like that. So of course, that's going to be very attractive to these guys, especially guys on the brink, you know, especially guys that have just got nothing in their lives and they're just filling their lives with, like you say, just the coping mechanisms of porn, eating too much, cigarettes, whatever it is, you know, like whatever their vice is. And then this community comes along. And it's like, do you know what? This is it. This is like my promised land. This is the place that I'm going to go to finally develop myself and come out of that slump and become awesome, become powerful. But then, as I said, it was a trap. So that actually leads itself nicely onto why that community attracts so many guys for that very reason. They're very low. You know? Yeah,
well, yeah, that's what I think it is too. And again, you know, the fact that these men believe that, you know, successfully getting a girl's number or getting laid is somehow what they're looking for is validation from women. And so, you know, that somehow that gives them that. But the truth is that, at least in my opinion, I don't think that women should be the number one priority for men. I don't even think it's in the top 5. I think that, you know, I think that the thing is, if you're a man and you're simply pursuing, you know, like excellence in your own life for you, the women will come. Like, you don't have to worry about them, right?
That's it. That's what my whole philosophy and book is about, and everything else. Is that instead of it being about your objective is women, and you base everything on that, and you judge everything on that, and your whole identity is wrapped around that. It's about returning back to yourself and your own expression and getting on your own trajectory in life, your own purpose. And then when you do that, women are the side effect to that. They're the bonus to that. When you're a man on a mission, that is attractive. And then when you see women, yes, you can incorporate them into what you're already doing. That's the difference. You see a guy that's standing on the side of a street looking for women to approach, and he's like a predator, you know, he's like hunting women on the streets. That's very different to a man that's like, he's busy during his day, he's walking down the street, he's got to get somewhere, you know, he's a man on a mission, he's got purpose. He sees a girl and then he can stop and talk to her. If she's not interested, what's he going to do? He's going to carry on walking what he was already doing.
Exactly.
And that's also a metaphor for how you should live your life. If you're chasing these superficial highs, and like you say, women, they're not even probably in the top 5, then you're not developing the core visceral aspect of who you are and what you're trying to do in life. That has to be number one. When you get that right, the rest will fall into place. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with learning how to be a better communicator, more confident, you know, how to lead better with women and stuff like that. But never forget the primary purpose is always you, what you're doing, where you're going in that moment and in life. And then as a side effect, as a bonus to that, then you can bring women into that jet stream. It's like bringing a woman into that rather than coming out of your little box and trying to get into hers. For one of them.
That's good. That's true. I think that you know, even with the social stuff, I think that men should be you know, primarily working on friendships, family relationships if possible, you know, their business relationships. And again, the woman stuff will fall into place. You'll find that it's a lot easier. I used to be an extremely socially anxious person. And the reason was because I was really worried about what other people would think of me. This was when I was in high school, so it was decades ago. But when I got a job, I had to come out of my shell. I had to interact with customers. I worked in a restaurant, you know, and I got better and better and better. And then one day, Woody Harrelson, the actor, came to eat at my restaurant. And, you know, he and I got to talking for a little while. He probably doesn't remember me, but the point is, I wouldn't have been able to do that like some years before, right? There's no way. I'd probably have a panic attack. And so but it was still an interaction with a man, you know, that was a stranger. And I think that, I guess I'm just saying, to go back to what you're saying, like, the men have to focus on their own development, their own method of expression, their own goals. Women are attracted to men who appear to be on a mission, as you put it. And
well, yeah, you can see that even in that's why they find men in uniform so attractive, for instance.
mm-hmm.
Right? It's because that uniform demonstrates a man that's on a clear mission, a purpose that's well above her as the objective.
Yeah,
that it's subconscious. It's already she's picking up on that, and it's embodied through the whatever it is, the navy outfit, whatever it is.
Yeah, and another thing too is that I think that men who are doing that, they're going to be a lot more discerning of women. So, and this is really important because, if you're just going to bars and nightclubs to get laid and you have all your techniques laid out, the problem with that is the quality of woman you're going to find is probably not going to be one that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And of course, there are men who are going to say, well, I don't want to spend the rest of my life with these women. But as time goes on, you're going to ask yourself, and this is like a thing that I think a lot of guys end up doing if they're always clubbing and banging randos, is they're going to say, well, is this really going to be my life? Because it's not fulfilling, right? Yeah. And of course, the quality of these women is low, and they've probably slept with tons of guys, and you're putting yourself at risk for a number of reasons, when you sleep with them. But and I think that men should have standards, right? Not just on women, but on themselves. And so, like, if you have, pursued all of the things in your life that needs to be worked on, then you're going to be less of a simp, basically. I mean, you're not going to chase women around simply because they're hot. You're going to have standards yourself. You're going to be more discerning. You're going to meet a woman, and then after, you can probably figure out whether or not she's worth your time within the first couple of sentences that she speaks. And I think that men will benefit greatly from that, because what we have now, again, men are just sleeping with whoever gives them attention. That's like an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed. I'm gonna mention it briefly. You let me know what you think about this. I've noticed that with many men who are younger, maybe they may have experience, so it's not like they're virgins, right? But they will, if a woman gives them attention that makes them think that woman likes them in a sexual way, even if they were not attracted to them before, they will become attracted to them based on that. Do you know what I'm saying? So a woman gives a man positive attention, flirts with him, whatever. Yeah. Maybe before that, he didn't really see her as like someone that they might sleep with. They might find her like she's an okay, maybe she's a 6, whatever. But then the woman gives them attention, and the guy goes, oh, you know what? I think I want to sleep with her now. Have you ever, I've seen that countless times, but I don't know if you've seen that.
Well, they just feel like as though this is definitely on the table now. It's on now. So I'll just lower my standards just because I feel like I can have her, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens. Yeah, I'm sure that happens a lot. That does happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they do become attracted to them. And I think that is something that might come from the fact that men generally they're more flexible with their standards. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. I sometimes say, if you have a room of 100 men and the most stunning girl walks in, I'm talking like just hottest girl you've ever seen. She walks in. I would say 95% of those men would say I would sleep with her before she even says anything. I would say,
Oh, yeah.
If you flip that around though, and you had 100 women in the room and you had equally the most stunning guy walked in, I would say probably only 10-15% would sleep with him straight away. So for me, when men are courting women, should we say, when they see a woman they find attractive, they say yes or no pretty much, or yes or no or hell yes, whatever it is. But we kind of do that, we make that decision. But for women, when they see a guy they find aesthetically pleasing, for them they put them into no or maybe. That's the difference, I think, for women. They need a little bit more. We're sold more on looks.
Yeah.
They need to be. They're sold more on attitude and their ability to lead them and move their emotions around, and the way they feel in the presence of this man. whereas we are immediately sold straight from
Yeah.
the visuals.
Or women are also affected by status. So it depends. Like if the man could look like Michael Fassbender, but if he's, you know, wearing like sweatpants and like a wife beater, they might not be interested. But if he's wearing a suit or a uniform, that changes everything. Because he's showing, you know, he's demonstrating his status. And to just as a side comment, I also think that on some level, women will become attracted to men or will want to be with men if they think it's going to make other women jealous, just because. But that's not really to do with sex or attraction. I think that's more like women playing their own little game, their own
I'm sure they have
competitive
that
game.
as well.
Yeah.
But actually, just talking about the vesting, like wearing like a, you know, just a sweatpants, whatever. You'd be surprised if that guy was to then get on stage and be a musician in that club.
Yeah, that would change everything.
He immediately becomes the highest status guy in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and actually in Belgrade they have a certain like a part of Belgrade. It's called Straheninski Bana, I think I pronounced that right. And it's sort of almost a little bit like the kind of, I don't know, LA type. You know, where it's all status, high status, it's that kind of thing. But the way they do it is the guys dress as low key as possible, gives them the highest status. So the ones that are dressing in the most sports gear, and you know, the ones that don't give a shit, they are seen as the ones that are the highest status in that area. It's like very bizarre.
I can see it.
Documentary, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to be, you know, I'm high status, but I don't need to show it, you know. So yeah, that is interesting. So let's go back to your book briefly, because we're almost at the end. But I don't know if there's like some things you wanted to touch on, but one thing that I do think, what are some, let's say, some things, like we already know what the problems are with the whole PUA red pill thing, but what are some things that men who might be involved in that or feel, you know, like they are trapped in that, because they are trapped in there with a bunch of other men who are also trapped in there. What are some things that they should do if they want to like move away from that? Not you know, without necessarily, because I think that it is a useful thing. Like I think that men can gain a lot of understanding of the world from it, but you have to like, you know, I don't know, moderate yourself.
I would say it's okay to get into that whole industry community for a little while, because at least it stimulates action taking, you know. So you're getting out there, and you know, you might be a guy that sat in his mum's basement eating Cheetos all day, you know, playing PlayStation. Suddenly there's this community, and it's telling you can go out there and talk to hundreds of girls, and we've got your support, we've got your back. So I think from that perspective, you're obviously going to be in a better position if you're talking to loads of girls and being sociable than you are staying at home. Don't get me wrong about that. I'm just saying, if you stay in that industry and that community, and you see the world through that prism of, you know, they see everything as targets, approach the target, disarm the bitch shield, like work her to this stage and then touch her here. And then it's like this, it's all sequential and like linear, and, you know, it's all about strategy.
It's like a manual.
You've got to then get out of it at some point. If you're staying in the industry more than a year and a half, I'd say there's issues there, you know. And so what you've then got to do is then take the things that you've learned, such as the action taking, you know, feeling the fear and, you know, going towards doing it anyway, you know, stuff like that. But then remove, this is the key. So if you think about it like a circle, you're learning all these techniques and lines and routines, and like you're taking loads of action, but guys get stuck at this point. The next stage for mastery is where you let go of all of that. And actually you let go of the outcome, you let go of the techniques, you, instead of being stuck in your head and trying to memorize things and preparing things, all that's doing is adding, and you mentioned this earlier, adding more shields. It's a way of protecting yourself from her actually seeing you for who you really are and being exposed and naked, metaphorically, in that moment. The final stage is to be okay, to be secure in your insecurities, to be okay with being completely open and unprepared as well, to just respond to her, listen to her, and be totally unprepared, like improv. You know, improv's a good skill for guys to learn. It teaches you how to respond to people, to let go of
adaptable
the outcome, and let go of the expectation, let go of any need for result, remove the judgment, remove the scoring system. So you're having an interaction with a woman. It's just like this, me and you, Brian, where we're not really engineering this. We're just sort of flowing, and you give me a little bit, I give you a little bit back, and we're both co-creating this together. And I can still lead this. You're leading this podcast, right? but it doesn't mean that you're controlling it. You're not strategizing. You know, you're not in your head like, what do I say next? You know, like, and that for me is that's the final, that's the coming back to who you are and bringing it back into integrating that back into yourself again. So you have the action taking and then the letting go. You can say that's the masculine and the feminine. That's the synthesis right there. That's like the two yin and yang. You know, whereas guys are stuck in yang energy. And they need to integrate the yin energy of acceptance, of accepting any eventuality with a woman. And that gives you that fluidity. So I walk up to a woman now. If I'm thinking I need to get her, I need to get a result, I need to get something, and it breaks down, then I've lost. Reject it. And they have the word rejection. Pat on the back, don't worry. Come on, blast through that anxiety. Come on. Whereas the trick is to actually, when you're going and talk to a woman, I've already accepted the fact that, you know, she's not mine to have. I don't own this woman. All I can do is just express to her. So if you can think about the difference between like Pac-Man in the game, he's trying to capture his pills, you know, he's kind of eat things, you know, whereas it's like an empty mouth. As soon as he's eating a pill, his mouth's back open again. You know, it's like this thing, you know. What I'm teaching is like, imagine the sun. Imagine the sun is like a big ball of energy. There's nothing incomplete with the sun, and all the sun does is just beam out rays of sunshine. Now you might want to step in the shade, or you might want to get a suntan. But how's the sun going to feel? The sun doesn't judge it on rejection or winning. It's just constantly expressing, constantly beaming sun out, you know? And so that's what I'm like when I'm talking to people. I'm just expressing like a ray of sunshine. And if you want to step in the shade and ignore that, it doesn't bother me, you know? I keep on shining. I'm just going to shine on people. And if you can do that, that is mastery. And you just, you know, it will totally change your world.
Yes, yeah, I get what you're saying. One of the things that I think is like a skill or something that people should develop if they want to do that is the ability to not care what other people think about them, because I think that is like the reason why like you said, I mean, obviously men worry about rejection, it hurts, but like they have to, you know, develop a let's say it's like you have to not live your life according to other people's standards. And if you have your own, and you know, it's not like something that you've made it challenging enough that it's worth pursuing, then you will be a much better off person for it, and other people can't affect you. I mean, you know, and that's going to be useful not just with women, but all through your life, right? So yeah, I think that sun analogy is very good.
The word is autonomous. To be autonomous within yourself, self-contained within your own actions in your life, not needing anything from anyone else. Of course, we love, you know, human connection, human intimacy is important, but we're not completely dependent on that. We can still be okay and balanced and healthy even without these things. And you will find by really tuning into that, to really believing in that and embodying that, you will attract, like the sun's planets orbit around the sun, you know, and all the sun does is just express itself unconditionally, you know. So that is the key. And that's why that's why my book is called Game Over, because the original book, The Game by Neil Strauss, it was about teaching tricks in order to, you know, get laid. This is the opposite, which is about just express unconditionally, lead decisively, but express unconditionally, let go of the outcome, and you'll find that, you know, life becomes a playground.
And no, I agree with that. And also, again, you know, like you mentioned before, that PUAs, well, at least like the seduction techniques, the red pill, whatever you want to call it, they run the risk of men who follow it run the risk of losing themselves, which means they lose their identity, because everything becomes defined by, you know, the success of this thing that they're pursuing, and then they couldn't like forget who they are, you know. And I think that you should be, as I guess, you know, the ancient Greeks would say, know thyself. Like that's like a good place to start from, at least.
Absolutely. So, that's the whole thing about it. I mean, there's guys out there that they create diagrams, flow charts of like each girl they spoke to or got laid with, and they're like measuring it on these graphs, and he thinks that's for me, that's not healthy, that's not good, you know. Like if you're going out there and you're judging who you are as a man, you're basing who you are as a man based upon your ability to pick up girls or not. I mean, that's a slippery slope, because if you're not getting laid, then it's like she's going to chip away at what you consider yourself to be a man, you know. So it's it's not good.
Yeah, one of the other things I've said too many times is that if you are working on yourself and you're engaged in self-mastery and you're focused on, you know, your, like, the things about you that you want to fix, your health, your diet, your habits, whatever, and you're doing this long enough, like I said before, you know, the women will come, but the other benefit of that is that even if they don't, it won't matter to you.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it won't matter. So like if there's like I don't know, someone in the chat that's thinking that this is all about, like, you know, at the end of the day, what you need to do to attract a female, it's not really, because if you have like achieved, you know, or if you're working towards this like self, you know, actualization, then you, even if women don't approach you, you're not going to be bothered by it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because
that's truly embodying autonomy, and that's a really good point. I should have mentioned that. What people, when they listen to this, when I talk about this, they go, John, I did what you said. I went out there and I didn't care about any women, and I just felt autonomous. But you know, I didn't talk to anyone, or like, why didn't she come over and talk to me? I did that thing you were saying, John. Why didn't I? was like, that isn't true autonomy. True autonomy is to genuinely be so nourished in your own life purpose, your own mission in life, what you're doing, your friends, your family, your career, your passions, you know, that it's just, that is your energy, that's your life source, you know. And whether or not women want to step into that and join you on that ride, it doesn't matter. And you almost don't, in many ways, you don't really care.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're so energized by that. But at the same time, I do say to guys, at the same time, don't forget about bringing other people into that. Don't just suddenly ignore women. You know, like on the flip side of that, don't just think, oh, I've got it all sorted, I won't talk to anyone now. No, have that and bring people into it. Like it's a house party. You're bringing people into it, you know? Yeah,
exactly. Like, yeah. So, okay. So we've gone for a little over an hour. I'm going to call it here. I guess, like, are there any things that you really wanted to say? Any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I was going to just, I mean, maybe you can mention where they can find me, but we can do that at the end. But
there's a link. It's direct.me/the John Coop, and the John Cooper. Sorry, you can see it in the video underneath his name. So you can just go there and look at all of his links. There's also a book I think you should check out. It's called Game Over: From Pickup Artist to Social Hardest. So, you know, definitely if you're, sorry, that was the first, the other one is
edition. The second edition. The second edition, which is just published this year, is Game Over by me, John Cooper. And that is, I'm trying to think, what's the subheading I put on that? Love,
it's called
Love, Sex, Adventure Without Playing the Game. That's the name. If you want to find that on Amazon, you have to type in Game Over, John Cooper, and then do the drop down and click on books. Because there's a lot of John Coopers out there. I was having a bit of a hard time finding you on social media. So go ahead and check that out if you're curious. And you also have a podcast. I do actually. And that is, you'll see that on my social media links. I've got a podcast, The John Cooper Show, and I bring on various guests. I've had Alison on as well. And nice. We cover everything, no holds barred. Just on the pursuit of truth, and you know, just absolutely everything on there, you know. Yeah,
can't go wrong with that. I love me some pursuit of truth. You know, so all right, so we're gonna head over into the patron only show now and continue the conversation. Maybe we'll, you know, talk about, I don't know, we can talk about whatever. It's a lot more casual, and a little less focused. But if we talk more about this kind of stuff, that's fine by me. So if you guys want to join us, become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into our Discord. We can really use the support, and you'll be able to watch all of the additional content that's there, as well as, drafts of other sort of pre-recorded videos that Allison usually makes. And you can even give her feedback, on whatever. But there's lots of community things going on. Again, I think that it's very, very, very crucial that, in particular, men fraternize and mentor each other and help each other and connect, because I think that even though we have the internet, which is, I think, probably one of the greatest boons in human history, because it allows us to expand conversations to anywhere in the world. I think that we've also become more and more atomized, and isolated. And in particular, this is true of men. And I think that men need to come together and need to share, ideas and engage in conversation. So if you want to be a part of that, again, go to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into the Discord. And we hope to see you there. So with that said, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show. Be sure to check out, again, all of the links for John Cooper's stuff. It's going to be in the description. And most importantly, please share this video, because sharing is caring and it helps us grow. I noticed that we've been getting a good number of subscribers on the live streaming channel recently, and I am very, very grateful for that. But I want to reach more people, because this is an important conversation that you're not going to find hardly anywhere else. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Fireside Chat, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.